Working mom guilt and dad guilt, why it happens, and what actually helps. A parenting guide from Creative Minds Montessori. You feel guilty because you care, it's a conscience, not a verdict. And here's the research twist most parents never hear. With things like screen time, it's the guilt, not the modest imperfection, that actually strains you and your child. So keep the signal and drop the self-punishment. Reflect on whether it's a real problem or a manufactured one. Treat yourself like you'd treat a friend. Protect one small connection ritual, and lean on a good childcare partner. A reliable rhythm beats a perfect performance. At its core, guilt is the felt gap between what you're actually doing and the good parent you picture in your head. When performance falls short of that internalized ideal, guilt fires, and it fires in working and stay-at-home parents alike, because the ideal is unmeetable by design. Around 3/4 of parents feel pressured to be perfect by friends, family, and social media, and report something like 23 pangs of guilt in an average week. Some of this is literally wired in. New mothers show heightened activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat and emotion center, which sharpens their sensitivity to a baby's needs but also makes guilt feel more potent. Early guilt, in other words, isn't weakness, it's a tuned-up alarm system. The distinction that changes everything is guilt versus shame. Guilt says I did a bad thing and can prompt repair. Shame says I am bad and just corrodes. Healthy guilt is useful information. Chronic self-attacking guilt is not. The sharpest proof is screen time, where researchers found it's the guilt, not the amount, that predicts harm. Guilt 1 month predicted higher stress the next, and that stress predicted a weaker parent-child bond. The guilt itself becomes the thing hurting the relationship. The idea that a mother is responsible for how the child turns out is a roughly 200-year-old inherited script, not a law of nature. It traces to the 19th century cult of domesticity, and its modern mutation is what sociologists call intensive mothering, the belief that good parenting must be child-centered, expert-guided, emotionally absorbing, and expensive. It's a guilt machine precisely because the standard can never be fully met, and its demands peak at the exact stage women are ramping up careers. Then the phone pours accelerant on all of it. Social media manufactures a 24/7 highlight reel that inflates the perfect parent comparison. And it created a new double bind. Parents feel guilty about their own phone use during quality time and about their child's screen time, and the two loops feed each other. Used well, though, tech genuinely helps. Good apps, a video call with faraway grandparents, and center-to-parent apps that shrink the what's happening right now anxiety guilt feeds on. 3 common moves, honestly. The first, overcompensating, guilt gifts and caving on limits. Buy the toy, extend the screen time, skip the boundary to make up for being gone. The catch is that the relief is the parent's, not the child's. Guilt-driven leniency doesn't meet the child's real need. It teaches that limits are negotiable, and it can perpetuate the exact behavior stressing everyone out. The second move, treating quality time as a scoreboard, cramming curated, Pinterest-grade activities into a few hours. Focused attention matters, but turning it into a performance re-triggers the motherhood Olympics, and kids often want ordinary, low-key presence more than a staged event. The third, white-knuckling it in silence. Fewer than 1 in 10 parents talk about screen guilt despite more than 7 in 10 feeling it, so silence breeds the isolation that makes guilt worse. And cutting screens cold turkey out of guilt spikes conflict without the benefit. Better to reflect than react. Hold this as a tendency, not a rule. In one framing, roughly 90% of mothers versus 17% of fathers report work-family guilt, and it clusters differently. Mom guilt around caregiving and presence, dad guilt around earning and protecting. The mechanism is well evidenced. Internalized gender stereotypes predict the gap. Same objective situation, different guilt, because of the internalized who's supposed to do what. A dad leaving for work reads as doing his duty. A mom's ordinary work choices read as a subtraction from mothering. But don't erase father guilt, it's real, just quieter and less socially validated. For single parents, both scripts land on one set of shoulders with fewer supports. And in same-sex households, the guilt tends to follow whoever does more hands-on care versus earning, not gender, which is the tell that this is about role. The way to turn the clash into teamwork is to name it out loud, divide the invisible worry labor, agree on consistent limits so neither has to be the bad guy, and let each carry the guilt the other can't see. The principle underneath all three methods is one move: keep guilt as a signal and strip out the self-punishment. You're not trying to feel nothing, you're trying to respond to the real thing and let go of the manufactured part. Demote guilt from judge to advisor. The first method: trade self-attack for self-compassion. The counterintuitive truth is that being kinder to yourself makes you a better parent, not a lazier one. Researcher Kristen Neff frames it as three parts: self-kindness instead of self-judgment, common humanity instead of isolation, and mindfulness instead of drowning in the feeling. After about a month of practice, new mothers reported more self-compassion and less stress. Self-attack burns the energy you need to show up, self-kindness preserves it. In the moment it's small and internal. Catch the guilt thought, name it plainly. I'm feeling guilty about the tablet, add the common humanity line. Most parents feel this, and then offer yourself the exact sentence you'd say to a good friend, usually far gentler than what you say to yourself. Anchor it with 2 slow breaths or a hand on your chest. The only thing your child notices is a calmer, less reactive parent, which is the entire point. The second method: treat guilt as information, reflect, don't react. Guilt is a signal to examine, not a verdict to obey, so put a pause between the pang and the fix. Ask 3 questions. Were there legitimate reasons to relax the limit today? Sickness, needing to cook, comfort? Are real negative consequences actually showing up, or are you imagining harm? And is an internalized good parent belief inflating the guilt beyond the facts? Act on the genuine consequences, discard the manufactured guilt. Introduce gently, this changes your child's day for the calmer, not the stricter. Applied to screens, it reframes the fight around content and context. Co-view, pick good apps, video call grandma, instead of a blanket ban. Rather than a sudden crackdown born of a guilt spike, you move limits predictably. After this show, we'll play, so the child experiences a steady routine, not a punishment. The mistake that keeps parents stuck is skipping the pause and letting the guilt drive, because a decision made to relieve your discomfort rarely matches what your child needs. The third method: choose presence over performance, one small predictable ritual. Children need consistent, attuned, low-drama presence far more than staged mega-events, and even short focused time outweighs long distracted time. So instead of chasing magical moments, pick 1 or 2 anchored daily rituals you can actually keep: a 15-minute one-on-one, an identical goodbye phrase and a hug, a bedtime tell me one thing, and put your phone away for them. Let your child help with a real task rather than being entertained. The key is to keep the ritual identical so it becomes a dependable anchor. A scripted, unchanging goodbye does far more to soothe a child than a big emotional send-off. Start with just 15 minutes. By age, an infant needs a predictable feed and nap rhythm, a toddler thrives on practical life helping, a preschooler loves a daily check-in. What sabotages it is the opposite instinct guilt pushes you toward, a giant, irregular gesture. Your child isn't grading the meal, they're feeling the rhythm, and a reliable one beats a spectacular one every time. The behaviors that trigger the most parent guilt, crying at drop-off, clinging, are usually healthy signals, not damage. Separation distress means your child has formed a secure attachment and misses you. It starts around 6 to 9 months and eases by about age 3. What they need underneath is predictability and reassurance of return, not more presence at any cost. And they read you. A calm, confident goodbye tells their nervous system this is safe, while a guilt-drenched, drawn-out one tells it even my grown-up thinks this is bad. Your child mostly doesn't keep the scorecard you keep, they feel the rhythm of being fed, comforted, and returned for. A good center is a guilt reducer, not a guilt source, because it replaces the day-long what's happening to my child imagination with real answers. Look for caregivers who give frequent, specific feedback and seem genuinely approachable. Age-appropriate ratios, staffed-up continuity, and low turnover. ask how long the teachers have been with your child's age group. The single most guilt-dissolving thing a center provides is data, the specific, non-judgmental daily observation that starves catastrophizing of its fuel. A weak center does the reverse. Thin, one-way communication feeds the very imagination that drives guilt. A passing "he seemed quieter today" with no context lands as pure judgment. So run the partnership as 3 channels. You tell the center the triggers and what you're doing at home. We use a fixed goodbye phrase, "new baby at home," so they can mirror it. The center gives you frequent, specific, non-judgmental observations of the actual day. And the child is looped in with a predictable goodbye ritual and named feelings. All 3 facing the same direction shrinks the unknown's guilt lives on. This is not medical advice, and when in doubt, talk to your pediatrician. There are 2 tracks. For the child, ordinary separation anxiety eases with time and consistency. Worth a professional's eyes is distress that isn't settling within about 2 to 4 weeks, recurring nightmares about separation, refusing to sleep alone, frequent stomachaches or headaches with no medical cause, panic, or clinging so extreme it disrupts daily life, which can point to separation anxiety disorder and warrants your pediatrician or a child therapist. For you, guilt can tip from a feeling into a mood or anxiety disorder, especially postpartum. If you feel anxious, guilty, hopeless, or worthless nearly every day for 2 weeks or more, please reach out. Guilt and shame are documented predictors of postpartum depression, which is common and very treatable, and high-functioning versions hide behind someone who looks fine. Fathers are not exempt. Start with your doctor. And if you ever have thoughts of harming yourself, treat it as urgent. Call or text 988 right now. For postpartum support, Postpartum Support International's helpline is 1-800-944-4773. No single approach fits every child or family. The through line is gentler than the guilt suggests. Guilt shows you care. It's an amygdala tuned to your child and a conscience doing its job. The task was never to eliminate it, only to demote it from judge to advisor. Keep the signal, drop the sentence. The pairing that beats both self-flagellation and blind rule following is reflection. Is this real or manufactured? Plus self-compassion. Would I say this to a friend? The goal isn't zero guilt or perfect balance. It's a reliable rhythm of presence, honesty with yourself, and a support triangle all facing the same way. For the full guide and more parenting resources, visit creativemindsmontessori.com/parenting.